Imagine a scientist walking into a laboratory. In front of him, a human brain. A network of billions of neurons. Each one firing tiny sparks of electricity. Signals traveling faster than thought itself. Now imagine a yogi sitting quietly in a cave thousands of years ago. No microscope. No instruments. No medical textbooks. Only breath, silence, and awareness. And yet, both of them are asking the same question. What is the human body really made of? Is it only flesh and chemistry? Or is there something deeper moving beneath the surface? Because when modern science finally began measuring the human body closely, it discovered something remarkable. We are not just biological organisms. We are electrical systems. Every thought in your mind is a pulse of electricity. Every heartbeat is triggered by an electrical signal. Every movement of your body is controlled by tiny electric impulses traveling through nerves. Remove the electricity, and the body becomes silent. Doctors measure life itself through electrical patterns. Brain activity through the EEG. Heart rhythm through the ECG. Life is electricity organized into rhythm. But this discovery creates another mystery. If the human body runs on electricity, where are the control centers? Where are the junctions where these currents gather and distribute? Modern anatomy answers this question in one way. It describes nerve clusters known as plexuses and hormone regulators called endocrine glands, tiny structures that quietly control almost everything in your life. Your stress, your sleep, your emotions, your immune system, your motivation, even the feeling we call love. But centuries before modern biology mapped these systems, ancient Indian traditions described something surprisingly similar. They spoke of a life force called prana, energy flowing through invisible channels known as nadis. And according to those teachings, there were certain points within the body where this energy became concentrated. Powerful junctions, places where life force gathered like currents meeting at a river. They called them chakras. For many years, people believed this idea belonged only to spirituality. A poetic description, a symbolic system. But something curious began to appear when modern researchers compared these ancient maps with human anatomy. The locations of the 7 primary chakras seem to align almost perfectly with the body's most powerful nerve networks and endocrine glands. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps something deeper is happening. Maybe the ancient yogis were not imagining mystical flowers of light. Maybe they were describing something they could feel directly within the body. A biological architecture hidden beneath sensation. A network of energy that modern science is only beginning to understand. If that possibility is true, then the human body may not simply be a machine of flesh and chemistry. It may be something far more extraordinary. A living electrical circuit. A biological instrument capable of generating thought, emotion, awareness, and perhaps something even deeper. And somewhere along the spine, from the base of the body to the crown of the head, ancient traditions believed there were 7 remarkable power stations, 7 centers where energy, biology, and consciousness intersect, 7 gateways into the hidden circuitry of the human experience. 7 power stations. If the human body truly functions like a living electrical system, then there must be points where this energy gathers. Places where signals converge, where biological activity becomes more intense, where the body seems to hold a deeper intelligence. Modern anatomy calls such places plexuses, clusters of nerves where information from different parts of the body meets and redistributes. At the same time, the endocrine system places powerful hormonal glands almost at the same locations. Tiny structures, but with enormous influence. They control growth, emotion, stress, immunity, sleep, even the rhythms of consciousness itself. Now imagine something curious. Thousands of years before the discovery of nerves or hormones, ancient yogic traditions described 7 centers of power within the human body. 7 points along the spine where the flow of life energy becomes concentrated. They called these centers chakras. The word itself means wheel or spinning vortex, not because there is a literal spinning object inside the body, but because meditators often described feeling a swirling sensation of energy at these points. A subtle movement, a rhythm, a vibration. For centuries, This idea remained in the realm of spiritual philosophy, but when modern researchers compared the chakra map with human anatomy, a surprising pattern began to appear. Each major chakra sits remarkably close to one of the body's most important nerve plexuses and endocrine glands. Almost as if two completely different traditions, separated by thousands of years, were describing the same biological architecture in different languages. The lower centers. Consider the base of the spine. Ancient texts describe the root chakra, the center associated with survival and stability. In modern anatomy, this region lies close to the adrenal glands. These glands release adrenaline and cortisol, the hormones that activate the body's survival response. Fear, alertness, fight or flight. Exactly the same themes that ancient philosophy associated with the root chakra. Move a little higher in the body, and another center appears. The sacral chakra, traditionally linked with creativity, pleasure, and emotional flow. In modern physiology, this area corresponds closely with the reproductive glands and the pelvic nerve plexus. Systems responsible for reproduction, hormones, and emotional bonding. Again, different words, but strikingly similar ideas. Further up the spine lies the solar plexus chakra, known in yogic philosophy as the center of personal power and will. Modern biology reveals that this region contains the solar plexus nerve network and connections to the pancreas. It also sits near what scientists sometimes call the second brain. The enteric nervous system, a complex network of over 500 million neurons inside the gut, so many neurons that it can operate almost independently of the brain. This is why we sometimes experience a gut feeling, an intuition that arises from deep within the body, not imagination, but neural processing happening beyond conscious awareness. Ancient traditions described this region as the fire of transformation, the place where intention becomes power. The heart and throat. As we move higher into the chest, another center emerges, the heart chakra. In yogic teachings, this is the bridge between instinct and higher awareness, the place where compassion, empathy, and love arise. Modern science identifies an important gland near this region, the thymus, a key regulator of the immune system. But the heart itself holds another secret. It generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the human body, far stronger than the brain. Sensitive instruments can measure this signal several feet away. The heart is not only a pump, it is a powerful electrical generator. Science now tells us that emotional states like love can influence heart rhythms, hormones, and even immune function. The next center lies in the throat chakra, traditionally associated with communication and expression. And here again, modern biology reveals a powerful regulator, the thyroid gland. This organ controls metabolism and energy levels. When thyroid hormones are balanced, a person feels energetic and expressive. When they are not, fatigue and emotional imbalance follow. Ancient descriptions reflect these same themes of physical vitality and the ability to bring inner thoughts into the outer world. The higher mind, but the most mysterious center, may lie deeper within the brain. The third eye. In yogic philosophy, this is the center of intuition and perception beyond ordinary senses. For centuries, this idea seemed purely symbolic until scientists examined a small structure buried deep in the brain, the pineal gland, a light-sensitive gland that regulates sleep cycles and circadian rhythms. Interestingly, philosophers like René Descartes once referred to it as the seat of the soul. And finally, at the crown of the head lies the seventh center, the crown chakra. In spiritual traditions, this represents the highest state of awareness and unity with the universe. Modern neuroscience describes something intriguing when studying advanced meditators. At times, large regions of the brain begin firing in synchronized patterns, known as global neural coherence. During these moments, people often report profound experiences of clarity and expanded awareness. 7 centers. 7 biological junctions. 7 intersections where nerves, hormones, and consciousness meet. Ancient yogis explored these centers through meditation. Modern science explores them through microscopes and imaging. 2 different paths moving toward the same mystery. The realization that the human body is an intricate network of living circuits. But knowing these centers exist is only the beginning. The real question is, what happens when these circuits fall out of balance? Why do so many people today feel constantly exhausted or disconnected? What if modern life is disturbing the natural rhythm of these biological power stations? To understand that, we must begin at the very foundation of the system, at the place where human survival begins, the root of the entire network. The survival circuit. Every system must have a foundation. Every building begins with a base. And the architecture of the human body is no different. At the very bottom of the spine, ancient yogic traditions describe the first and most fundamental energy center, the root chakra. In Sanskrit, it is called Muladhara. The word itself means the root of existence, the foundation upon which everything else is built. According to ancient teachings, this center governs our most basic human instincts: survival, security, stability, the feeling that life itself is safe. When this center is balanced, a person feels grounded, stable, connected to the world around them, like a tree with deep roots in the earth. But when this foundation becomes unstable, fear begins to dominate the mind. Anxiety grows. The body remains constantly alert, as if danger is always nearby. For centuries, this idea was understood purely in spiritual language. But modern biology reveals something fascinating. Near this exact region of the body lie the adrenal glands, two small glands sitting above the kidneys, tiny in size, yet incredibly powerful. Because these glands produce the hormones that control the body's survival response. Adrenaline, cortisol, chemicals that prepare the body for immediate action. When a threat appears, the adrenal glands release a surge of these hormones. Heart rate increases. Breathing accelerates. Blood pressure rises. Muscles tense. The brain becomes hyper-focused. It is the body's ancient survival mechanism, often called the fight-or-flight response. This system evolved thousands of years ago to help humans survive real physical dangers. A predator in the forest. A sudden threat to life. But the modern world presents a different challenge. The threats we face today are rarely physical. Deadlines, financial pressure, social expectations, constant digital stimulation. Yet the body reacts the same way. The adrenal glands still release cortisol. The nervous system still enters survival mode. Except now, the threat never seems to end. And this creates a condition scientists call chronic stress, a state where the body remains permanently activated, always alert, always prepared for danger, but never truly resting. Ancient yogic philosophy described something remarkably similar. They believed that when the root chakra becomes imbalanced, the mind remains trapped in fear and insecurity. The foundation of the system becomes unstable. Energy cannot rise to the higher centers of awareness. In simple terms, a person stuck in survival mode cannot easily access creativity, compassion, or intuition. Their entire system is focused on one question: am I safe? And perhaps this explains why so many people in the modern world feel exhausted, not physically, but energetically. Because the body is constantly running emergency programs. The nervous system rarely turns off. The survival circuit remains active long after the original threat has disappeared. But the ancient system did not stop with the root. Just above this foundation lies another center, the sacral chakra, known in Sanskrit as Svadhisthana. If the root represents survival, the sacral center represents flow, emotion, creativity, pleasure, connection. It is the energy that allows life not just to continue, but to expand. Modern biology places an important network in this same region: the reproductive glands, and a complex network of pelvic nerves. These systems regulate hormones that influence emotion, attraction, bonding, and creativity. In many ways, they shape our most intimate human experiences: desire, attachment, artistic expression, the joy of creation itself. Ancient yogic traditions believed that when this center flows freely, life feels vibrant. Emotions move naturally. Creativity emerges without force. But when this energy becomes blocked, A person may feel emotionally numb, disconnected, unable to experience joy. Modern psychology observes similar patterns. Long periods of stress often suppress emotional expression. Hormonal balance shifts. Creativity declines. The body focuses again on survival rather than expression. And this reveals something profound. The first two circuits of the human system are deeply connected. If survival feels threatened, creativity fades. If safety disappears, emotional openness closes. In other words, before the mind can explore higher states of awareness, the body must first feel secure. Ancient wisdom understood this long before neuroscience existed. They knew that consciousness grows like a tree. Roots first, then branches. And perhaps this is the quiet challenge of modern life. Many people are trying to reach the higher branches of the mind while their roots remain unstable, seeking clarity, meaning, peace, while their nervous system is still fighting invisible threats. But the human system does not end at survival and emotion, because further up the spine lies another center, a place where instinct begins to transform into power. A biological furnace hidden deep within the human body, the place where intention becomes action, and where the raw energy of life begins to take shape. The ancient yogis called it the solar plexus chakra. The alchemist in the belly. There is a strange moment in human experience when emotion does not appear in the mind first. It appears in the body, a tightening in the stomach before a difficult conversation, a sinking feeling in the belly when something feels wrong, a sudden warmth spreading through the chest when love appears. Long before the brain explains what is happening, the body already knows. For centuries, people dismissed these sensations as imagination. Expressions like gut feeling were considered poetic metaphors. But modern neuroscience has discovered something extraordinary. Inside the human digestive system lives an immense network of neurons, more than 500 million nerve cells woven through the intestines. So many neurons that scientists now refer to it as the enteric nervous system. Sometimes it is called the second brain. Unlike most organs in the body, this neural network can operate almost independently from the brain in your skull. It processes information, regulates digestion, responds to stress, even communicates continuously with the brain through the vagus nerve. This means that your stomach is not simply processing food. It is processing information. Signals moving back and forth between brain and gut like a constant conversation. Ancient yogic traditions describe something strikingly similar. They spoke of a powerful center located near the navel, the Manipura chakra. In Sanskrit, the word Manipura means city of jewels, but its deeper symbolism refers to a different kind of treasure, the inner fire of transformation, the place where raw life energy becomes willpower, confidence, personal identity. When this center is balanced, a person feels decisive, motivated, capable of turning ideas into action. But when this center weakens, doubt begins to appear. Energy fades. Motivation disappears. Modern biology offers another perspective on this experience. Near this same region lies the solar plexus nerve network, one of the most complex nerve intersections in the body, a central hub where signals from internal organs communicate with the brain. The pancreas also resides here, regulating blood sugar and metabolic energy. When this system is balanced, the body produces stable energy levels. But when stress disrupts the system, fatigue and emotional instability often follow. Ancient philosophy described the same imbalance differently. They said the fire of the solar plexus becomes weak. The inner furnace dims, the bridge of the heart, but the story of transformation does not end in the belly. Because further up, the body lies another center, one that ancient traditions considered the bridge between instinct and higher awareness. The heart chakra, known in Sanskrit as anahata. The word anahata has a beautiful meaning. It translates roughly to the unstruck sound, a vibration that exists without two things colliding. A symbol of pure resonance. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions described the heart as the center of compassion and love. But modern science has uncovered something remarkable about the heart itself. It generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the human body. stronger even than the electrical signals produced by the brain. Sensitive instruments can detect the heart's electromagnetic rhythm several feet away from the body, which means the heart is not only pumping blood, it is broadcasting energy. But there is another biological system connected to this region: the thymus gland, a small but vital organ responsible for regulating immune function. It helps the body recognize what belongs to it and what does not. In a strange way, the immune system mirrors the emotional function ancient traditions attributed to the heart. The ability to distinguish connection from threat, belonging from separation, love from fear. Modern psychology has also discovered something fascinating about emotions like compassion and love. When people experience genuine affection or connection, the brain releases a hormone called oxytocin, often referred to as the bonding hormone. Oxytocin reduces stress hormones, stabilizes heart rhythms, and strengthens feelings of trust and empathy, which means love is not only a poetic experience, it is a measurable biological state, a chemical and electrical harmony spreading through the body. This may explain why emotional pain often feels physical. When someone experiences heartbreak, the sensation appears in the chest, a heaviness, a pressure, a strange ache behind the ribs. Ancient traditions interpreted this as an imbalance in the heart chakra. Modern science observes changes in heart rhythm and stress hormones. Two explanations, describing the same experience. And perhaps this is where the ancient chakra system becomes truly profound. Because according to yogic philosophy, the heart is not simply another center in the body. It is the gateway. Below the heart lie the circuits of survival, emotion, and personal identity. Above the heart lie the circuits of expression, perception, and higher awareness. In other words, the heart is the bridge between instinct and consciousness, the place where biological survival begins to transform into something uniquely human. Compassion, empathy, connection, the realization that we are not separate from the world around us. But the journey through the body's circuitry does not end here. Because further up the spine lies another remarkable center, a place where inner experience finally becomes outer expression, where thoughts become words, ideas become sound, and the invisible world of the mind begins to shape reality itself. Ancient yogis called this center the throat chakra, and according to both biology and philosophy, it may be one of the most powerful creative forces within the human system. Would you like me to continue by exploring how the throat chakra and the thyroid govern your creative output and metabolic drive? Architects of reality, every idea that has ever changed the world began as something invisible, a thought, a whisper inside the mind. Before a bridge is built, before a book is written, before a discovery is made, it exists first as a silent pattern of thought. And for that invisible pattern to enter the world, the body must do something remarkable. It must translate thought into sound, into language, into expression. Ancient yogic philosophy believed that this ability is governed by the throat chakra. In Sanskrit, it is called Vishuddha. The word itself means purification, not in the moral sense, but in the sense of clarity, the transformation of raw internal experience into something pure enough to be expressed. According to ancient teachings, when this center is balanced, communication flows naturally. Ideas become clear. A person speaks with authenticity. Truth moves from the inner world into the outer world without distortion. But when this center becomes blocked, something strange happens. Thoughts remain trapped inside. Words become difficult. Expression feels restricted, and the voice of the individual slowly fades beneath noise and doubt. Modern biology reveals an interesting connection in this same region of the body. The thyroid gland, a small butterfly-shaped gland located in the throat, tiny in size, yet incredibly influential. Because the thyroid regulates metabolism, the speed at which the body converts energy into action. When thyroid hormones are balanced, energy flows smoothly. The body feels active. The mind feels sharp. But when the thyroid becomes imbalanced, fatigue appears. Mental fog grows. The entire system slows down. In other words, the body's ability to express its energy into the world begins to weaken. Ancient traditions described the same phenomenon in different language. They believed that when the throat chakra becomes constricted, the flow of life energy struggles to move upward. The seat of insight, but beyond the throat lies an even more mysterious center, one that has fascinated both philosophers and scientists for centuries. The third eye, located deep within the center of the brain. In yogic philosophy, it is called ajna, often translated as the command center, the point where awareness becomes insight. For thousands of years, yogis described the third eye as the gateway to intuition, not imagination, not supernatural visions, but a deeper form of perception, a way of understanding reality beyond the immediate information of the five senses. For a long time, this idea remained purely philosophical, until scientists began studying a small structure hidden deep within the brain. The pineal gland, roughly the size of a grain of rice, positioned almost exactly in the center of the brain. The pineal gland performs a remarkable function. It responds to light. Through complex neurological pathways, it helps regulate the body's circadian rhythm, the internal clock that controls sleep, wakefulness, and hormonal cycles. Without this tiny gland, the body loses its natural sense of time. Sleep becomes chaotic. Biological rhythms collapse. But the pineal gland has fascinated philosophers for another reason as well. In the 17th century, the philosopher René Descartes referred to it as the seat of the soul. He believed it might be the point where consciousness interacts with the physical body, an idea that sounds surprisingly similar to the ancient concept of the third eye. Of course, modern science does not claim that the pineal gland produces mystical visions, but research has revealed something interesting. During deep meditation, certain areas of the brain associated with self-awareness and perception become highly active. At the same time, the brain begins to generate slower wave patterns associated with clarity and insight. This is the state where many people report sudden realizations, creative breakthroughs, moments where complex ideas seem to organize themselves into understanding, what ancient yogis called intuition, and what modern neuroscience might call integrated cognition. Two languages again, describing the same human experience, the moment when perception expands beyond simple observation, when the mind begins to see patterns beneath the surface of events. But even this deeper perception is not the final stage of the human system, because above the third eye lies the final center described in the ancient chakra system, a point not associated with one organ or one gland, but with the entire architecture of the brain itself, the place where individual awareness may connect to something far greater, the highest circuit of the human body. The crown. Would you like me to describe the final stage, the crown chakra, and how modern neuroscience views the state of total neural coherence that ancient yogis called enlightenment? Crown of consciousness, at the very top of the human system. Ancient yogic traditions described one final center, the crown chakra. In Sanskrit, it is called Sahasrara, a word that translates to the thousand-petaled lotus. Unlike the other chakras, Sahasrara was never described as just another energy center inside the body. It was described as something different. A gateway, a point where individual awareness touches something far greater than the self. Ancient texts often described it poetically. A lotus blooming above the head, a light expanding outward, a moment when the boundaries between the inner world and the outer universe dissolve. For centuries, these descriptions sounded purely mystical, but modern neuroscience has begun to uncover something fascinating about the brain itself. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each neuron capable of forming thousands of connections. When you do the math, the number of possible neural connections inside one human brain becomes almost unimaginably vast, more complex than any computer ever built, more intricate than any network humanity has created. And at the top of this network lies the cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for the highest functions of consciousness: self-awareness, abstract thinking, creativity, moral reasoning, the ability to imagine futures that do not yet exist. This thin layer of neural tissue is what allows humans to ask questions like, Who am I? Why does the universe exist? What is consciousness itself? No other known species asks these questions in the same way. Which means the human brain is not only a survival machine, it is a meaning-seeking system, a biological structure that constantly searches for patterns, purpose, and connection. Ancient yogic traditions described this awakening differently. They believed that when the energy of the lower centers rises through the body, passing through survival, emotion, identity, compassion, expression, and perception, it eventually reaches the crown. And when it does, a profound shift occurs. The individual no longer experiences themselves as separate from existence. Instead, they experience themselves as a part of it. Modern neuroscience offers an interesting parallel to this idea. During deep meditation, brain scans often show reduced activity in the default mode network. This is the system in the brain responsible for the constant internal narration we call the ego, the voice that continuously says, I, me, my story. When this network quiets down, people often report a strange experience. A sense of unity, a feeling that the boundary between themselves and the world has softened. Not hallucination, not fantasy, but a different mode of awareness, where perception becomes quieter, clearer, and strangely peaceful. It is not proof of mystical enlightenment, but it is evidence that the brain has multiple ways of experiencing reality. Ancient philosophy interpreted this state as the opening of the crown chakra. Modern neuroscience describes it as a shift in neural activity patterns. Two explanations, two languages, but perhaps describing the same human potential. And maybe that is the deeper message hidden within the chakra system. Not that ancient sages had microscopes or brain scanners, but that they spent thousands of years observing the human experience from the inside, while modern science observes it from the outside. One through meditation, the other through measurement. And slowly, the two perspectives are beginning to meet, not as enemies, but as two halves of a much larger understanding. Because the human body may not simply be a biological machine. And it may not simply be a mystical vessel either. It may be something far more fascinating. A bridge between biology and consciousness. Between matter and meaning, between the measurable universe and the mysterious awareness that is able to observe it. And perhaps that is why ancient yogis called this final center the lotus of 1,000 petals, because consciousness itself might not be a single doorway, but a vast unfolding, layer after layer, petal after petal, revealing a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. This completes the journey through the 7 centers.